Let's not waste time. They didn't come for you. They didn't arrive to stay. But they left fingerprints on your soul as though they were entitled to every inch. So why does life throw you headfirst into someone you were never meant to hold? Why that absurd, undeniable, impossible pull, so real, it aches? That person you remember but can never reach, was that a curse, a message, or a brutal mirror reflecting something in you that still hides? There's something ruthless about these impossible connections. Not because they hurt, but because they expose corners of your being you were content to leave untouched. They breathe life into you only to remind you that what you want is just out of reach. That contradiction, that craving with no resolution, is one of life's most cutting tools to force you beyond your comfort. And Jung saw it. He understood it's never really about them, the eyes, the voice, the nearness, their stand-ins, symbols, mirrors of something buried in your core. But ask yourself, why them? Why that exact moment? Why did time bend when your eyes met? That kind of meeting isn't about romance. It's not about destiny. It's surgical. It cuts. It opens. It unveils what you've refused to look at. It masquerades as love, only to drag you back to yourself. Because often, what you ache for most is what pulls you furthest from who you are. Jung spoke of the anima and animus, the inner forces we cast onto others. You didn't fall for them. You fell for what they represented, for what they awakened inside. And life, or the collective unconscious, or fate, whatever name you give it, knows exactly how to corner you with precision. So it sends you that one person. The one who triggers something raw. Because if you had them, you'd never dig within. Ever love someone who couldn't return it? Who belonged to someone else? Who lived far away? Who was unable or unwilling to stay? And still, when they appeared, something in you shattered. That pain, it's not grief over what was lost. It's the grief over what they stirred awake. The part of you that had been buried. Here's what hurts. It's not love. It's projection. It's the soul demanding your attention. When someone impossible appears, life isn't punishing you. It's pushing you, forcing you to face what you always sidestepped. Because that person stirs something ancient, something that predates even you, maybe from your childhood, from what never arrived, from the affection you needed but was denied. And now this face shows up like a savior, a healer, a redeemer. But they never were their purpose, to reveal the hollow space within you. And yes, it burns. And yes, it's necessary, because that's when the true work begins. Not when they arrive, but when they leave. When their absence echoes and you're left with pieces. Then you begin to realize it was never about them. It was about your shadow, your hunger, your missing pieces. People say soulmates bring peace. False. Soulmates are chaos. They are combustion. They arrive to shake your soul, to unearth your truths. Because without that quake, you stay in slumber. You go on believing you're whole when you're just fragments built on other people's scripts. So when the universe throws you against the unholdable, it's not cruelty, it's accuracy. Watch your reaction. The panic, the clinging, the torment. Is that love? Or is it dependency? Is it a plea for help in disguise? Jung understood this too. He said the unconscious becomes fate when left unchecked. And you call it love, you call it magic. But it's a mirror, a trap. Your nervous system lights up like you're under attack because, in a way, you are. You are on the brink of seeing yourself because everything you chase out there is exactly what you've abandoned in here. So be cold about it. That unattainable person, what do they represent? Strength? Calm? Fire? Whatever it is, that's what you've been missing in yourself. If they symbolize peace, maybe your insides are turmoil. If they symbolize purpose, maybe you've been lost for years. That's why it hurts, not because of their absence, but because it spotlights what you never built. It's savage. But it's truth. Then comes the cruelest twist. You cling to what triggers your emptiness. You loop through the what-ifs, the fantasies. But hear this, it wasn't random. It was a message. Not a cue to run back, but a call to return inward. Life doesn't make mistakes. It doesn't send you someone out of reach to punish you. It does it to strip your crutches. to fracture your pattern. Because until it breaks, you'll attract the same cycle with new faces. That's where Jung returns, this time with the concept of the shadow. What you deny in yourself, you seek in others. What you avoid, you romanticize. And maybe that impossible figure personifies exactly what you most fear or most crave. Their distance, their power, their coldness, it all magnetizes you. Not because it's love, but because it's reflection. That's what's really going on. You're not in love. You're mesmerized by your own shadow. That's why you can't move on. It's not about them. It's the war you're waging inside, against denial, against wounds, against truths you buried. And just when you think you've figured it all out, the most devastating realization hits. It's not fear of losing them. It's fear of being left alone with yourself. Because when they're gone, the story dies. The villain vanishes. The drama ends and all that remains is you. And that's when the battle truly begins. Impossible love isn't some poetic tragedy. It's a psychological siren. A glaring signal that something within you needs attention, needs healing, needs clarity. And here's the irony. You can only face it in their absence, in the silence, in the vacuum left behind, because only then can you finally hear yourself. And this is where the truth sharpens. Many times, the one you couldn't have was never meant to stay, but to stand at the threshold of real love. The kind that doesn't come with sweet slogans or soft affirmations. The kind that begins when you hold yourself through the chaos. When you stop begging the world to rescue and start learning how to carry yourself. Because once that shift happens, once you choose yourself, not out of anger, but out of awakening, the pattern dissolves. And maybe then someone appears. Not to save you, not to fill you, but to walk beside you. But before that, you have to let go of the illusion, and that's the brutal part. Because pain is addictive. Your brain loops what's familiar. Your nervous system confuses trauma for love. But if you can let go, if you stop idolizing, if you understand the impossible was part of your path, something changes. Something deep. You begin to reclaim the person you were before the fall. And more importantly, you begin to create the person you were always meant to become after it. That's when impossible love stops being a scar and becomes a portal. And it's your choice, step through or keep knocking from the outside. Then comes the quiet moment when the tears dry, when the ache dulls, when the silence no longer screams. That's when the universe speaks again, not through faces or accidents or longing. It speaks through you, through the serenity that doesn't come from finally having someone, but from no longer needing to. Through that moment of piercing honesty where you no longer chase someone else to avoid yourself. This is the final truth, the one no one tells you in songs or fairy tales. The one you can only feel when you've lost everything but yourself. The person you couldn't have was never the goal. They were the key, the lockpick, the lightning strike. They were the force that pulled you out of numbness, that cracked the illusion, that threw you into your depths. They didn't come to stay. They came to point, to map, to fracture, to send you into your own shadow. It wasn't love, it was reflection. And reflections aren't meant to be embraced. They're meant to be read. Maybe you didn't even want that person. Maybe you just wanted anyone to soothe the ache, to mend the wound, to whisper you matter. But that can't come from anyone else. And the more you chase it externally, the harsher the mirror becomes. Because life doesn't hand you comfort, it hands you truth. And now you're staring straight at it. So what happens when you can't have someone, but you also can't forget them? You spiral. You grieve something that never lived. You wait for something that was never promised. And that's where the destruction begins. Because it's not just them you lose. It's yourself. And that's the trap. If you lose someone else, you cry. But if you lose yourself, you don't even know what you're mourning. So you repeat it, you chase again. You project again. You cling to a fantasy, a glance, a maybe that never materializes. Until one day you don't wake up from insight, but from sheer exhaustion. Because you're done. Because you finally get it. It was never about them. It never was. The universe doesn't steal people from you. It strips illusions. It removes masks. It burns down the stories you told yourself so you can finally see. And it does it mercilessly. It gives you what you crave most, and then rips it away. Because that rupture is the only thing powerful enough to dismantle your ego, to breach your armor. And what do you find on the other side? Just you, with your unmet needs, your childhood ghosts, your hunger for love without conditions, your fear of being left behind, your impulse to chase, your habit of placing others on pedestals, your difficulty being alone without crumbling. That's what's left when they walk away. Your truth, and that's where the real journey starts. Not with a reunion, not with a second chance, but with the realization that nothing was truly taken, because nothing was ever really yours. It was projection, a signal, an awakening. And here comes the twist you didn't expect, the one you couldn't hold on to taught you the most. Not because of the moments shared, but because of what never happened, because of what they unlocked, because of what they dragged out of hiding. They didn't teach you how to love. They showed you the spaces inside where love never reached. They didn't teach you patience. They revealed your desperation. They didn't give you direction. They pushed you to the cliff's edge. And on that edge, you saw it clearly. The only real way forward is in. Jung said, enlightenment doesn't come from fantasizing light, but by making darkness visible. And that darkness, it's yours. Not theirs, yours. And if you don't face it, you'll keep bleeding it into every connection. You'll keep calling the wound a soulmate. You'll keep circling the same lesson until it wrecks you enough to wake you. That's why impossible people appear, to unmask, to expose. And when the wreckage clears, when the silence finally arrives, it's not the end, it's the start. The beginning of your return. The first breath of your rebirth. Because what felt like heartbreak was actually initiation. They didn't come to stay. They came to collapse the version of you that survived by avoiding truth. And now that you're face down in the rubble, ask yourself, what now? Will you reach for another fantasy, another face, another echo? Or will you finally meet yourself raw and real without the filter of longing? And now that you're down there, alone, confused, hurting, haunted by someone who was never truly yours, another realization creeps in, one that chills you more than all the others. What if you needed that pain? What if on some level you invited it? Not with words, with energy, with emptiness, with those patterns buried so deep you mistake them for fate. Because what you keep calling coincidence is often just the magnetic pull between your old wounds and the way the universe shakes them. And here comes the hardest blow, the one no one wants to admit. The soul clings not to what is good for it, but to what is familiar. That person you couldn't have, were they really extraordinary? Or did they just fit with surgical precision into an old story of abandonment, of not being enough, of being invisible? Sometimes we confuse intensity with destiny. We mistake the tremble in our chest for a cosmic sign, when really it's an old scar whispering, this again. You again, picking the sharpest edges because you've mistaken them for home. Because you weren't choosing from your highest self, but from your deepest wound. And this is where psychology stops being polite. Impossible love isn't random. It's addiction. It's a compulsive loop built on unhealed memories. And the most disturbing truth, you're not addicted to that person. You're addicted to the emotion they trigger, the longing, the ache, the drama, the identity you create around not being enough. And here's what real strength looks like. Maybe one day you'll see them again and it won't hurt. Your chest won't tighten. Your hands won't shake. Not because you stopped feeling, but because you finally understood. Because you are no longer fractured. Because you've become someone whole. Someone who doesn't chase ghosts, but walks alongside truth. And in that moment, you'll look at them and see yourself. Not who you were when you needed them, but who you became when you no longer did. Because they were never meant to stay. They were meant to wake you. And now that we've come this far before we go any deeper, I want to share something with you. Our book, The Formula of Awakening, is now available. Do you feel that something inside you wants to awaken, but you don't know where to start? Then this is for you. It's not just about thinking differently. It's about living differently. Discover the person you can become. Start today. The link to get the ebook is in the first pinned comment of this video. Grab your copy now while it's still at this price. And with that said, let's return to the final question, the one most people never dare to ask themselves. How many times have you confused intensity with destiny? Because that's the root of it. Believing that what hurts must be holy, that what breaks you must mean something. But love, real love, doesn't destroy. What breaks you is not love. It's the fight you keep having with yourself in the disguise of another. So maybe now, after this video, something shifts. Maybe you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what was life trying to show me through this? Because that's the difference between living asleep and living awake. The ones who sleep see curses. The ones who wake up see signs. And you can't close your eyes anymore. So now it's your turn. Don't just tell me you liked the video. Say it in one sentence. Write in the comments, I've understood the message. Say no more. The ones who know will know. And if you've made it to this point, you already understand this wasn't by chance. This video found you precisely because something in you was already calling for it. Just like you called in that impossible person. But the cycle doesn't have to repeat. This time, you can choose. Subscribe if you feel this isn't entertainment, but revelation. Because this is not about views, this is about waking up. About piercing through the illusions that keep you small. Because when one person awakens, they awaken everyone around them. So let me leave you with this. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. But every single one arrives to show you where you've been betraying yourself. Write that down. Etch it into your memory. Because life doesn't make mistakes. We're the ones who keep trying to read divine instructions with blindfolds on. I'll see you in the next mental journey. And remember this, your soul doesn't break from love. It breaks from abandoning yourself. And you've already started to come home.